Most professionals begin humbly. They're making a salary, they're supporting their family, and then if God blesses them, their business expands. Ivan Kaufman was no different than those people. But as Ivan's business expanded, so did his perspective. And instead of just focusing on assisting his community, his schools, his local institutions, he built a much broader vision of supporting the Jewish people and the Jewish world. Meet Ivan Kaufman this week on Jewish Grit. Welcome to Jewish Grit. This week from sunny Surfside, Florida, and it is a true honor and a pleasure to welcome Ivan Kaufman to the podcast.
Thank you.
Ivan, you are the CEO, founder of Arbor Realty Trust. Did I say that right?
You said that right.
Amazing. I did my homework.
Yes.
And we're grateful that you were willing to give us some of your time to share hopefully some valuable insight. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey? I guess a little personal and a little professional. So you grew up in Long Island.
I grew up in Long Island, and I had the benefit, or the detriment, depending on how you look at it, of going to a small yeshiva and getting somewhat of a Torah education. But the other side of it, it was a yeshiva where you had to commute, an hour and a half a day.
Oh my gosh.
Very small, and had a lot of detriment to it in terms of socialization and mixture and things of that nature. But like everything else in life, everything has its positives and negatives, and you take the positives and you go from there.
Amazing. And then you high school, you went to the same place, or?
It was the same place, very, very small high school. And I think it was 8 kids in a class.
Wow.
Very, very small.
And then you graduate high school and?
Went to Boston University, worked for a couple of years, and went to law school, got married, had kids, started my business, and did it all at the same time at the age of 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you manage a marriage, children, and a career at 23?
You don't think about where you are, you think about where you want to be. And when you're younger, you have a huge amount of energy and optimism, and that's why God gives you those challenges when you're younger. When you get older, it's a lot different. So it was more normal, even though it is abnormal. But when you're having 3 kids, when you're working 20 hours a day, when you're not sleeping, when you have insurmountable challenges, when you're young, that's your time. You have time for failure, you have time to take risks. And what's incredible, those are the times in your life that you have time to forge unbelievable relationships as well. When you're younger, when you have children, when you move into a community. And that's when you begin to define yourself.
So at what point in your life did you say, this is my career, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm building?
I've been entrepreneurial since I'm 6.
Can I hear about that?
Well,
what'd you sell?
I was in the Catskills and I was delivering bagels. So I did every odd job, every odd business. It was kind of always in my nature to be entrepreneurial. So there was no doubt in my mind that that's where I would come out. I just didn't know the path to get there. And you go to college, you get some odd jobs, then you decide to go to law school because you're not sure where you're going to come out. And then you delve into a business. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. It really doesn't matter. You just got to keep moving forward and going ahead. So I always knew I'd be entrepreneurial, and at a very young age I found something that is natural for me, the mortgage lending business, and how to build businesses and how to run businesses. And I was fortunate, even though my father passed away at a very, very young age. He was 50 years old, and he got sick at the age of 38. Even in that period of time, I made a choice. I made a choice to spend a lot of time with him when he was sick, before he passed away, to learn and work with him as my mentor. So I got as much from him as humanly possible, which really helped elevate me. It gave me my morals, my foundation, my work ethic, and his experience. So I took a very troubling situation. Imagine at the age of 10 or 12, your father having open heart surgery, and he's in his 30s with a very low chance of success. Back then it was 50-50, and then him being sick. But I didn't look at it that way. I looked at the opportunity for me to spend more time with him, and it paid off in spades. And that's a sacrifice. You have to make sacrifices in life to get ahead. You can't always take the easy route or what looks more favorable at that moment in time.
What profession did your father do?
My father was actually in the computer business, and unfortunately, even though he was somewhat successful at the age of 38, he was forced to liquidate everything he had because his chance of survival was very, very small. So it was unfortunate, but the fortunate part is I got to work with him, and I got his experience, and that's how we looked at the world, and that's how you have to look at the world.
When you think back on your father, who seems like was your mentor, kind of gave you a lot of the direction in your life, what are some of the things that you learned from him that you could potentially share with us?
You know, it's funny. No matter what you do in life, whether it be personal, whether it be business, we all have an enormous number of problems. That's just the way it goes. God gives nobody the easy path. And he used to have a saying to me, every problem's an opportunity. If you face a problem like a problem, you'll fail. If you look at that problem, then that problem can become the opportunity. And that's what will differentiate yourself. And that goes for life. We all have bad breaks. We all do. And it's how you look at those bad breaks and whether you prosper from them or whether you fail from them. And I think later on in life, which I didn't have earlier and I didn't understand it, when you combine that with emunah, when you combine that with faith, and you really have faith in Hashem and in God, and you say to yourself, whatever God throws at you, there's a reason for it, and you have faith, that's an added layer that allows you to work hard and succeed. But you have to do your part. You have to put in your time. You have to work hard at it. But that element of having faith is something that was added to me later on in life, which really helped me get through many, many problems that seemed insurmountable.
How did you find that faith? Like, at what point in life did it all of a sudden become part of your life?
I think I was going through some very, very difficult times. I was struggling. I was struggling. They were personal in nature combined with business. They seemed insurmountable, and I felt they were beyond me. And I studied with various rabbis as part of my life, studying, learning Torah, bettering myself, because the Torah is really the pathway to light. The rabbi said, you have to include in your prayers and ask for help and have faith. And I never understood that dimension, that you have to ask God for help to get you through these problems. And that's having faith. And that really happened in the great financial crisis in 2010, when people like me who were running financial services companies really became upside down. You took all your 10 years worth of work of success, and in the snap of a second, it was all gone. Everything was gone. And it really took a lot of resilience, a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment, a lot of ingenuity, but most significantly, having that faith and knowing every day that if you did your part and you asked God for help, you would get through it. And like I said earlier, every problem becomes an opportunity. I think there were 10 companies in our space at that time. I think we were the only survivor at that time, which was remarkable. So I had the faith, I did my part, and Hashem did his part for me.
Could you drill down a little bit on that? So you're the one survivor in a really tough financial climate. What happened? Like you said, it's an opportunity, but when there's nothing to fund, or it's hard to fund anything, like how does that become an opportunity? You can't do business.
You don't give up. You keep trying. You keep pushing. You understand the realities of the workplace. God gave a lot of us a lot of seichel, a lot of brains. Now you have to have the willpower to charge through it. I think what you have to recognize, it just didn't happen to me, it happened to everybody else, right? Even though, you feel like a failure at that time, how did this happen? These were insurmountable circumstances that have occurred. Very similar to where we are in the real estate industry today. You had a 10 or 15-year run, and all of a sudden, rates go up, rules change, values go down, and life becomes insurmountable once again. It's a very similar circumstances, not as draconian as that, and you have to have faith, you have to work through it, and you have to do your part. And you don't define yourself based on just money, right? You define yourself on all the other things that you can do in life. And that gets back to, many of the things that I've done in my life. I didn't do charity and build institutions for the purpose of getting rewarded. I did it because, number one, it was in my DNA from my parents, so it was part of my life. I did it because I felt fortunate that I had the ability to have certain financial successes, and that I didn't want to be selfish, and I would want to spread those out to the people that I could help. What I didn't understand is that when the world goes sideways and you lose your financial standing, you never lose what you gave. You never lose what you built. Many people said to me, oh, if you didn't give all that money to build the schools you built, right, you would have that much more money in the bank. My response was, they could never take away from me. Nobody could take away from me the chesed that I did, the institutions I built, the lives that I've affected. So once again, it's the right way to look at things. And that was unbelievable. In 2010, everybody went upside down. Everybody became illiquid. Everybody's financial net worth became a mess. It was a scary time. A lot of people said to me, if you didn't give so much money to build those schools, you'd be okay. And you know what? The fact that wouldn't have been the case, because I would have spent it somewhere else.
That's for sure.
But now I looked at myself and said, wow, what I have in my life, what I built, nobody can take that away. So I felt really good about it, and it gave me a different outlook in terms of chesed and charity.
So we were talking offline before, like, you're investing in eternity, and you can't take eternity away from somebody.
You can. And I think we live in times now, and I think it's really essential. October 7th enlightened a lot of people. There were many people who didn't understand who the Jewish people were and really what the world's views were towards the Jewish people. And that's why my commitments, where I spend a majority of my time, is in Jewish education, because the best vaccine for anti-Semitism is Jewish education, and Jewish education is the Torah. And whether it be 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, the only thing that matters is the values of the Torah. It's funny, I dedicated a Torah. I recently got remarried in Israel.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
And I dedicated a Torah, and Rabbi Berg from the Aish came in, and he got up and he spoke about the Torah, and it moved everybody in the audience. He said, these letters, these words have not changed. Think about that. We as a Jewish people have the same morality, the same guidance, the same rules, and they've been a test of time, and we're the only people that exist from the beginning. So that's our religion. If you understand that Torah is the best vaccine for anti-Semitism, and that's what we have to spread. That's what we have to talk about. And it doesn't matter whether you're religious, whether you're from, whether you're not religious. These are the words that will educate everybody.
Can you explain that? How is Torah a great vaccine or an antidote for anti-Semitism? I mean, the world around us doesn't know what we're learning or we're not learning.
Because it's consistent and it's foundational. Talk about the United States, right? If you ever listen to Rav Soloveitchik, he ties in the entire Torah to the founding of the United States, and it's the backbone to how the United States was founded, right? It's about democracy, it's about morality, and also our history. You want the correct view of history, right? Or do you want propaganda? The Torah is not changing the way it was written, and the truth. Listen, we just came out of this week's Parsha. I mean, it's really fascinating. People say, how do you know what's true? How do you know what's not true, right? And we learn around kashrus, right? And
the laws of keeping kosher.
The laws of keeping kosher, but the animals that they decide which are kosher or not kosher. If there wasn't a God, how would anybody know 2,000 years ago the different species that could exist and how they can describe them? Nobody was on all continents. Nobody knew all the animals. There's only one thing underlying everything, is that one God knew every species and could talk about them 2,000 years ago. I bet you today, if you didn't have the Torah, you couldn't describe all the species.
For sure.
So the Torah has the truth, and it has the light, and it also describes the Jewish people and our heritage. And that's what's at stake here every day, is our right to exist, our heritage, our morality, right? Good versus evil, we see it every day.
What brings you happiness?
That's an important question because we all search for happiness. Some people say happiness is making money. Some people say happiness is playing golf. I think you have to have a well-rounded life. You have to try and build a good family. You have to try and be as successful as you can within the means and have the right objectives and do the things you like to do. Working in an environment and things that you don't like to do won't bring anybody happiness. Chasing money and being unhappy, that's not good. But I think if you understand the Torah and if you understand what counts in life, that'll help bring you happiness over time. It's not one single individual thing. It's a multitude of things.
Has your definition of success changed from when you were in your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to now, or your 50s, whatever?
I think it has, especially recently, and especially with October 7th, and especially with many people. We talk about events. My father, when he passed away at 50, and I got past 50, I felt really lucky. But I'm losing friends today. I've lost some recently who were as healthy as can be, and the next day they end up with cancer, and they have 6 months to live, and they had everything to live for, right? Everything to live for. So I think that you step back, and I step back, and I say to myself, how can I have a more enriching life? How can I spend my time to take advantage of all the time that I'm here and fortunate enough to be here? So I appreciate my health. I'm fortunate to have a significant amount of wealth, but I'm not chasing wealth. I'm chasing quality of life, family, philanthropy. I've become more religious in my time and studying more and more Torah. So those are enriching things for me, and I want to make sure I get the most out of my time.
I'm assuming you're a savvy investor in whatever you do. How do you invest in philanthropy? Like, how do you decide what makes it and what doesn't?
When you're younger, it's different. When you're younger, you get involved at different levels, and it's more community-based. Those are very good charities to be involved in. Usually it's the synagogue, the local schools, it's feeding the poor, and it's all close to home. And as we know, your charity should be closest to home initially. And then you try and expand your horizons. For me, as I said earlier, Jewish education is number one. I've been involved in founding and building a high school. I just got involved with my wife in creating a women's institute, the Aish Women's Institute. Very rewarding to take specifically people who may not have the opportunity to have that Torah education and expand it. We just celebrated the 25th anniversary of the school that I founded and built, the North Shore Hebrew Academy High School.
Oh, that's you.
And
I didn't know that.
And what was unbelievable was I got to speak about things that I never thought could occur, or I never actually projected. I spoke about a young woman who only came to yeshiva because I built a yeshiva. She would have gone to public school. She ended up going to Cornell, and then being the spokesperson, spokeswoman, when there was anti-Semitism, and spoke in front of Congress and was the voice. So think about how rewarding that is, that you can take somebody who would have gone to public school, knew nothing about Torah, came to your school, and now is one of the advocates that we all see that's out there. That's extraordinarily rewarding. But I didn't do it then, but I'm seeing the benefit of what I've done. So I think when it comes to philanthropy, have the right intentions, the right agenda, and the rewards will come later. Don't do it for the rewards. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because that's part of our value system that exists. And then years later, you'll never know whether you're walking on the beach and somebody comes up to you and says, by the way, do you know me? You did this for me. And you then understand your reach with your time, with your effort, and with your dollars.
What would you tell a young couple that maybe has their first or second child? They're trying to decide what to do for their child's education. Maybe there's a Jewish education on the table, maybe not. What would you tell them to motivate them to invest in Jewish education versus just taking the easier road and sending them to public?
Well, we all have that choice in the beginning, and it's a good choice because you're going to send your kid to nursery school and pre-K. That's the easiest entry point to get your kid exposed. And I've seen many couples who I've said, give it a try. They love it. Next thing you know, they have tradition in their home. They have Friday nights, the kids are singing. They're coming home, on Purim with costumes, right? They're going through the holidays and they have all these little books. They're going to Siddur plays. Get them in early. See if they like it. See if you like it. Meet the parents. Meet the families. Meet the culture. Begin by understanding our tradition and how enriching our tradition is. You will love it. Everybody loves it. I host a lot of Shabbos dinners at my home. It's a big thing down here in the community. And everybody loves the tradition of a Shabbos dinner. It's not just the food, it's the tradition we have. So tradition is a very big element of our religion, and it takes you in. And start with your kids. Make the step, commit a few extra dollars, take one less vacation. I know it's a little hard of a sacrifice, but vacations come and go. They last a week, but this is a lifetime.
You have a microphone in front of you and the potential to reach tens of thousands of our students and young professionals who are literally just taking their first steps into their real life, if you want to call it that. If you had to give them a drop of guidance, some advice, what's the first thing that comes to your mind of what you could tell them?
I think it gets back to a lot of my earlier comments. Be hardworking, be determined. Don't let problems distract you. Everybody has their share of problems. Everybody. Nobody goes unscathed. God gives everybody a share of problems, and he gives it to you because you can handle them, right? Don't be deterred. Get past them. We all have them. I still have them. You're going to have them. You're going to have many of them. Get past them and be determined. Don't let it get you down. Get past them.
Thank you so much for your time, and wishing you lots of success in the many amazing things that you're involved with.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Jewish Grit, an Olami Mentorship podcast. At Olami Mentorship, we believe that everyone needs a mentor. What better way is there to tap into your personal and professional potential than with a Jewish mentor at your side? Learn more at olami.org/mentorship. Don't forget to keep listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.